Hey, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and we are in week 8 of the Dear Jane Quilt along that I'm doing in 2024. I am obviously using EQ8, but you can use the books and follow along that way, either taking some inspiration from the way I do it and how it's laid out in the book, or just maybe giving you some ideas. Anyway, I also want to let you know that if you don't want to go through any of the EQ8 stuff, I have timestamps in the description down below so you can go straight to the block constructions. Block construction. Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to kind of quickly go through adding my blocks to my color chart, and then I'll go through a couple of the blocks. So, on week 8, we have A12, framed fancy, and I'm using variation 1. I don't think there's a big difference between these, but I liked variation 1 better. So we've got A12. I'm going to set that up there. Then we have F10 Potholder, and I think there were some variations on this one, but I liked this one, the regular one, I guess, or the first center block they did. I like how it's paper piece, so I'm going with that one. So we have F10 Potholder right there. And by the way, I'm using goldish fabrics. It's not the same color as what EQ8 is showing you here. That's the best gold I could get off of EQ8. All right, next is K7, Rows of Sharing. And I am actually going to talk about this block and how I'm going to be doing it and what I'm doing in EQ8. And you could probably do the same thing from the book templates. Then we've got L12. This is an applique, by the way. K7 is an applique. So then we have L12, and that's Sally's Pride, and this is both a foundation paper piece, and these little tiny corners are appliqued on. And was that a variation? It was not a variation. So L12 Sally's Pride, I'll show you real quick what I'm doing there. And then we have TR-8 Brigadoon, which is both foundation paper piece and applique. So let's go over to the block work table and I'll run through these real quick. All right, in the block work table, we are working with A12 framed fancy variation 1. This is a pretty straightforward paper piece. This is what it looks like. You can move it around so that it fits onto the paper. It does fit. So pretty straightforward there. Next block is F10 Potholder. And again, this is going to be a fairly straightforward paper piece. And you can kind of move these out so that they don't, you got a little more paper to work with. But you've got 4 of the same center sections and 4 of the same corner sections, so that shouldn't be too hard to put together. Next, I want to show you something on the next one that I'm going to do. So this is called, it's K7 Rows of Sharing. This is what it looks like. So you can see that it has some seams. It wants you to put the background together with 4 pieces of fabric. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut probably 5.5 inch square piece of fabric and put my applique on. And yes, I said applique because according to this, there's 4 that you need to put on. But I want to show you what I'm going to do. I haven't made the block, but I'm pretty sure it'll work. What we need to do is go over to templates and let's hit preview. And you can see that we have, these are the 4, these A are the 4 backgrounds. We don't need that. I'm going to cut 1 background. I'm going to delete it. Then we have 4 of the flower petals, whatever you want to call them. So what I want to do is I'm going to put these together so I can cut just 1 piece. So I'm going to take the points and I'm going to put them together. And you can see that those are the points, the seam line points are together. Not the seam allowance points, but the seam line points. right there. And then I'm going to bring these down. I need to rotate them. I'm going to bring them over, rotate until I get it where I need it, which is right there. And again, I'm going to bring my seam line down and line it up the best I can. There we go. Same thing with this one. Rotate, rotate, rotate. And put my seam line point in there. All right, that is good enough for me. So when this prints out, it'll print with these 4 together like this, and then I'm just going to use the seam line on the outside as my template. And I'm only going to have 1 template, not 4, to put onto my block. I think it'll look cleaner, and I think it will be easier. So that's how I'm doing that one. Just putting those 4 seam line corners together to make 1 template. All right, that is Rows of Sharing. Sally's Pride is next. And that's a pretty straightforward, let's see, yeah. It's straightforward in the sense that right here, we will also have, I don't mean straightforward this way. We will have appliques right here, all 4 corners. But before we put the applique on, we will have foundation paper print. So, whoops. Let's go to print. Let's look at the foundation. This is what it looks like. That's pretty straightforward foundation paper piecing. Then we want to come back to templates, and we need to get rid of all of them but F. So F is our template for the applique that's going to go in the corners. So I will print that also. All right, the last one is TR-8. And this is going to have foundation paper piecing and applique. So you can see down here, right here, we've got the diamond appliques, and then we've got this like mound applique. So let us go over to print and foundation and show you that it's going to be pretty easy to put together. That's the foundation paper piecing, but then we want to come over to our templates and print just the N and the M pieces. So let's delete everything but N. There's N, I want that, and M. And then I'm just going to move M over here. So those are the 2 templates I'm going to need for this one for applique. So this week's pretty straightforward. I showed you a little bit on how I changed my rows of sharing, I think it was, so that I'm only going to have 1 cutout of an applique instead of putting 4 together. So hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to follow along on our quilt along. If you're doing this and you want to share your blocks on social media, put the hashtag Dear Jane QAL. I'll look for it and I'll share your blocks and show everybody how beautiful your quilt is going to be. But anyway, let's get started on our blocks. All right, let's get started on A12 Framed Fancy. I'm doing variation 1. This shouldn't be too hard to put together. I'm going to put together this small piece and this small piece because this and this are exactly the same. You just have a square in between. So what we've got here is I've got triangles for our outer corners. I've got small white triangles for our flying geese inside here. 1 square that is this center. And then these rectangles, which are going to go in these sections right here. And then for our dark color, I just cut all the same size triangles for all my dark color triangles. So this is the fabric I'm using. It's kind of hard to see because everything's going to be so small. And that's the block we're going for right there. And again, I'm doing variation 1. So what you're going to see is these inside triangles are going to be a little bit smaller because that's what Jane Stickles looks like. So that's why I chose variation 1. All right, let me get set up to do these two pieces right here. All right, to get started, this section will need a rectangle and 2 triangles, dark triangles. This flying geese section will need 4 of the light triangles and 2 of the dark triangles. And again, I have all my cut pieces that I'm using up on my website. I have a link in the description below if you want to use my cut sizes. All right, let's start with this one. I've drawn it out on the back, and we've got 1 here, 2, and then 3. 1 is going to be my white, so I want to lay it 1/4 of an inch over my 2, make sure I have coverage on my edges, and then just take one of my triangles and I line up the point of the triangle with the point out here. So now we'll just sew this down. All right, there's my first 2 pieces, and I've gone ahead and trimmed my centerpiece. So now all we have to do is add our 3rd triangle, line up your corners, and sew it down. All right, there we go. There's that section done. I will finish the other ones here in a minute. So on our flying geese, it shows B1 on the corner of the flying geese, then B2 is the base, B3. You can change that. This can be B1, B2, B3, like a traditional flying geese if you want to. Or you can leave the numbering the same. The reason I'm changing it is because I like to work with a bigger piece on the bottom. All right, so we flip it over and I change these to be 1 and 2 on mine. So now I have my base, which is the orange, and I'm just going to lay it so it's covering all the lines that I need it to cover. These lines, the side lines, and it's 1/4 of an inch over my sewing lines. So actually, let's do this. Let's put 1/4 of an inch over here on number 2 so I know where to lay it. There we go. And these are pretty small pieces. All right, so our next piece is our flying geese, and it's going to be, flying geese corner is going to be oriented like that. So we'll flip it so our long edge is down here. And now when we sew on the line, it'll flip over and we'll have coverage in this. It's just a tiny area right here. We'll have coverage right there. Right, there's my first 2 pieces. You can see we have coverage. We can't see any of the lines. I've gone ahead and trimmed my 1/4 inch here. So we just need to add this piece. So we have the long edges, or the long edge right here. And then we can get this sewn on. Right, no line showing. We got coverage. I've already trimmed my 1/4 of an inch here. And this one's set up just like I set it up down here, where we're going to put the base on first. I'm going to line my lines up, line my point up, and sew it on. And then I'm going to add the last 2 white corners on just like I did down here. All right, there's the 2 pieces I put together, sections. And I did change my size of these corners to be a little bit larger. I do have coverage, but it's just barely. So I made these corners, when you download it, will be bigger. All right, I'm going to finish the rest of this and then we'll put this block together. All right, there's all my sections trimmed down. So we have our middle row done. We just need to put these rows together, making sure that the smaller of the triangles, if you're doing variation 1, is on the inside here. So I'm just going to put these together, matching seams, sewing them, and I will probably iron these open. All right, 2 outer rows are done. So we'll just join these to the inner rows, and there really isn't any seams to match. Oh, you could match that seam. And it does go edge to edge, so I'm going to get these sewn up and we'll start putting our corners on. I'm going to iron these open too. All right, there's my center put together. And I have cut the triangles now down to size to what my templates show, and I'm going to put them on with my paper. I did that last week and I liked how it worked. Don't usually do that, but I'm going to do it this time. So I've attached my paper to my pieces. Whoops. And I'm going to line them up. They have notches. And the notches fall, these side notches fall on the edges. So we just need to line up the top edges and the side notch edges, pin it in place, and sew it down. So I'm going to do that with all 4 edges, and I'm going to iron my seams open again. There we go. There's A12 framed fancy, and I did variation 1 again because these triangles right here were smaller, and I just feel like that's what Jane Stickles looks like. All right, that's a really pretty block. A little time consuming, but hey, a lot of these are. All right, let's get started on F10 Potholder. This isn't going to be too hard to put together. I liked the version that they gave, not a variation. I want to paper piece these corners. So what I've got here is I've got some white triangles for these small white in the corners, and I've got white rectangles for the strips here. The dark strips are also here. The square that I've cut is for the center, and then these rectangles will fit in these corners here. So I am just going to put this piece together. This is pretty self-explanatory how to put together, and then we'll go ahead and put this block together, but we are going to have a Y seam right here, but it's a very slight curve, so it shouldn't be too hard. Forgot to mention, that's what the block is going to look like when we're done. Also, one thing I like about these corners is that the first piece is the biggest piece on all of these. So I've drawn it out on the back. I want to put my big piece on basically so it covers the entire thing. I'm going to pin it down here. Let's flip it. And we need to trim here between A1 and A2. So let's pull our paper back, and all right, there we are. We trimmed it up. Now we need to take our white triangle, lay it here so that we have plenty of coverage, line the points up, and sew on the line back here. I'm going to do the exact same thing for A3 also. All right, here's my pieces put together, trimmed up, and laid out. What I did, and I want to share with you, is since this is a singular piece, I just sewed on the inside the seam allowance here to keep these pieces together so that I can use them like a paper piece. Anyway, I'm going to put this together with this row and this row and then this row. So these two, this has a notch at the bottom of it. That has a notch at the top. Put them together, right sides together, and the point of this notch is going to hit the edge here. And I put a pin, or I tried it earlier, I put a pin right through there, and it went through the corner on the other side over here. So that's how the notch is going to line up. Same thing on the other side. This notch will hit this edge. So I'm going to get my 2 rows. These are all 3 rows actually. The 2 rows, top and bottom, will be like this, and then these 2 will just match up with the edges. All right, I put one side on just to make sure that what I was thinking was correct, and it did work. So I'm going to show you what I did. I flipped it over right sides together, and I lined it up again so that this notch on the other side hits the edge of my fabric right there.
I do.
And what I want to do, make sure my edge is straight here. I want to sew along this seam until I hit right there in between these 2 seams. And I want to put needle down. You could do a lock stitch there. And then we're going to work so that we can turn it and make a straight edge here. Come over to follow this line to this, right in between these two seams, and do the exact same thing. Needle down, turn it again. So let me go over to my machine and show you what I'm doing. All right, over here at my machine, I want to, like I said, sew down here to when I reach right in between those two seams right there. So that's going to be the first thing that I do. Lock stitch at my corner where the two seams meet. All right, needles down. I'm right in between those two seams. I'm going to give it a lock stitch. And now I am going to lift my foot, turn it. You have to manipulate, kind of manipulate this so that we get a straight seam right here. Now we can put our foot down and we're going to sew into the in between this seam allowance here. And give it a lock stitch. And turn it again. This one you got just a little bit more material you're working with, so there we go. Straight seam, edges are together, and sew it out. Another thing I'm going to do is throw some clips. I'm going to clip into the seam allowance right around that corner. Help it ease its way down. And then I'm going to iron towards that outer row. There we go. There's F10 Potholder. Is it perfect? No, I don't think any of my blocks are perfect. These are kind of on the more difficult blocks. So, but it's 5 inches. That's what makes me happy. And I am sticking with it. So there we go. Okay, next block is K7, Rows of Sharing. And this one I am doing as an applique. And if you didn't watch the EQ8 stuff I did at the beginning, you probably can do this, I assume, with the book also. These are 4/4 of the applique that you put together. Right here. I put all 4 of my quarters together, meeting in the center right there at the seam allowance, or the seam point, not seam allowance, seam point, to get one piece that I'm going to cut out. And I have drawn it out on my fusible, and I used the seam line to trace onto here. So all I need for this is my background. And this is what I'm going to fuse it onto, this piece. And then I'm going to put it on my background. And other than doing whatever applique I decide to do, I am done with this. So I'm going to put this on. I'm going to iron it down for 3 seconds to fuse it. And then I'm going to cut out my shape. All right, there's my piece cut out. My fusible paper still on it. I went ahead and creased my background so I could find these lines. What I want to do is, you can see it's deeper here. Each petal has a little indentation than a bigger one. So I want to just line up those creases with these right here, whatever you want to call those. And then it should be fairly centered after that. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me peel my paper, and there we go. I will get this ironed down, and this block will be done. That was easy. And there we go. K7 Rows of Sharing is complete. Easy. All right, let's get ready to put together L12 Sally's Pride. And this shouldn't be too hard. We have these paper pieces here. I have the long strips for these outer strips here. the white triangles for all the triangles you see here. These squares go in there, and these rectangles are what are in between the white triangles. We also have a little piece of applique that goes in the corner. So I have transferred it over to my fusible webbing using the seam line. So let's get to doing our paper piece first. What I'm going to do is just put together one of these units, and the rest is the same. All right, here's the piece I'm going to put together. I am going to need one long strip, 2 dark squares, 1 dark rectangle, and 2 triangles. I've drawn it out on the back side showing how it's numbered. So we're going to start in the center here with our rectangle, and here's our number 2. So we want to put it 1/4 of an inch over that line, making sure we've got coverage all the way around, and we do. So we need a triangle, and again, I just like to eyeball this point with that point. So on the line between E1 and E2. Okay, here's my first 2 pieces put on. I've gone ahead and trimmed this edge because the next piece is our square. And I have made it plenty big here. So on the line between E2 and E3. Okay, there's my rectangle number 4. Number 3 put on. Sorry, we're putting number 4 on now. And I've gone ahead and trimmed. Take my triangle. Line up my point with the point. And so on the line between 1 and 4 this time. All right, here's my 4th piece. 5th piece is our other square. We're just going to line it up so it falls outside of our lines. And so on the line between 4 and 5. All right, that's how you put together this big piece. And these little pieces are just like the center. So I'm going to finish this out, and then we'll assemble the block. I don't know that I mentioned that's the block we're making. So I went ahead and I did these single strips, and I did what I did last time, and I sewed them to the paper in the seam allowance. But before we get to those, we got to put this together. And these are our 2 rows over here, and then we have to put together our center row. Kind of want to zigzag it, or if you can see it, there is the letter, capital letter H. So you want to form a capital letter H in there. Yes, that's how my brain sees things sometimes. So I'm going to put this row together and iron the seams open. All right, there's my center row. Now I want to put these together. I have ironed my seams open, and I'm just going to line my seams up, and my edges should line up with my seams. I'm going to sew on that line. Lock stitch at the intersections. There we go. All right, I put the other side on also. Went on exactly the same way. Ironed my seams open. Now we just need to put these pieces on, right sides together. They should match up edge to edge, and they do. And we'll sew on the line, and I think I will iron towards my strip. All right, here's my block. Now I need to take my little pieces, my little triangles, and cut them out and set them on the corners here. All right, I got my tiny little triangles cut. We just need to put the base of the triangle across our corner here. I'm just going to eyeball it, tack it down, and then all I need to do is add the other 3 exactly the same way, and I'm going to iron those down. There we go. There's Sally's Pride, L12. So that wasn't too hard to put together, I don't think. It was kind of fun. Got some tiny little applique we got to do. Got just about everything in there. All right, we are now on our top row border block, which is TR-8 Brigadoon. That is what it's going to look like. Now we have this bottom piece, which is applique, but these 2 diamonds here are also applique. So I've got those ready over here to be put onto my gold fabric, and I'm going to do that at the end. So This is what our paper piece looks like. Let me go through my pieces. These large rectangles are E1 and D1 on mine. So these small rectangles are going to be the small pieces up here. These larger rectangles are B1 and C2 right here, and then the skinnier ones are D2 and E2. So I think it's pretty easy to put together two pieces here. This is two pieces. This is just a singular piece. I'm just going to put that one together real quick, and then we'll put this block together. All right, let's put this little piece together. A1 is going to be this piece. I am just going to put it over top so that it covers. I have plenty of coverage. So I've got coverage on everything, and let's see, we need to trim to A2. So let's fold it over and trim it. Okay, next thing we want to do is take one of these smaller, shorter, this is plenty big, rectangles, and we're just going to line it up so that we have coverage over where you can see the lines there. Okay, there's my first two pieces. I've trimmed here for A3. I'm just going to line it up there. I've got plenty of coverage. I made the pieces plenty big. And so on the line between A1, A2, and A3. Simple! So I'm going to finish putting these three pieces together, and then we'll come back and put our whole block together. All right, there's my pieces. Look what we have, and I did not foresee this. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. We're going to have a Y seam right there. So let's see how that goes when I get to it. What? How did I miss that? So the first thing we need to do is put this piece on here to match this. And then we need to put this piece on. And then we can put this piece on. And then we'll figure that piece out. So let's see. This piece needs to go on. If you cut the notches out, we'll line up down here. And then we should have, yeah. So when this turns over, it will create this V right here. All right, so that's the first one we put on. Let's see. I'm going to iron this open. Actually, no, this one's ironed towards this side, so I'm going to iron this one towards that side. That's what I'm going to do. All right, here's our top part put on. Now I need to put this piece on, and if you've trimmed the notches, this notch over here will line up with this side. And then your notch will fall up here in the corner. All right, so we can sew this together, and I'm going to iron it that way towards this E piece. All right, this one goes on this side. This is, all right, what we want to do here, I had to test it. We want to line it up with the corner up here, and then there will be a bit of a tail down here. I put my pin through, and that's where it came through on the other side with that corner. So we'll sew along that seam. All right, I put this piece on and I iron towards the corner, and we got this wonderful Y seam that I probably could have avoided somehow. But anyway, I put a pin through the point there and brought it through the point here. So let's just twist it and line it up. Okay, I think what we need to do is take this seam out down to here. I sewed along there, but I don't think I wanted to, or I should have, because I need to be able to turn kind of like that. So let's give that a shot. Let's go back here. Let's put it back through our point where everything meets right there. Straighten it out. Turn it, and we want to sew and stop at that point right there. We want to be careful not to sew into this over here. So you probably could stop maybe a stitch or two before the point. All right, there is my first side. Now we need to turn it. So that we have a straight edge on this side. There we do. It lays down straight and it feels good at that point. See, there's the top. Here's my piece. So now we want to sew from this point, lock stitch, up through there. That's what it looks like. Is it beautiful? No, but I don't think it looks all humpy or anything. So, let's just clip. So this seam I had ironed this way, so I clipped it. So it's now not attached up here anyway. So now I have a flat seam back there. So I am just going to iron it like that. There we go. There is TR-8 Brigadoon. And someone who sent me her blocks, her name's Cricket, said that some of her border blocks looked like they'd had too many to drink and were, you know, basically leaning. Yeah, so are mine. It will work. I know it'll work. Are they perfect? No, but I love them. I think they look great. They're difficult. So, you know, just take pride in the fact that we've got something that for the most part looks like a triangle. All right, now we need to do the applique. All right, here's my first applique piece. I need to maintain my 1/4 inch at the bottom. I did say last week we could keep this bottom seam allowance, and I totally forgot, but anyway, we can do this 1/4 inch here. You want to make sure you have a 1/4 inch over here, and I do. So I can pull the back off this and gently lay it down. And there we go. That isn't quite centered, but that's fine. So these need to go down so that they're lined up over here and on this edge. So that one looks good. There we go. There's our applique. There's our block. All right, there we go. There's all our block constructions for week 8. And I've imported my pictures and I've resized them and cropped them so that I can add them to my photo chart like I do every week. But this was a fun week to do. Let me know what you think of how I did some of these blocks. What'd you think of the Y seams in this one? And what do you think of the way I did my applique? Did it help you at all? Making it just one piece instead of 4. I'd love to hear from you. So there's my blocks for this week. And like I said, I've taken pictures of them. So let's add them to our quilt. It's always fun. I like that they added something like this. Well, let's see. I forgot a block. So hold on just a minute. All right, there we go. I went out and added that into my photos. All right, so let's start at the top here. And this one is A12. It's going to go there. Next one is F10. F10 is right there. And then we have K7. K7, TR-8, and L12. It's really exciting to see my quilt come together like this. It will look different than this. I mean, these are just pictures, but I'm getting really excited to see it. What do you think? Hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to watch this type of content and any of the other content I got on the channel. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.